Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. I'm Nena Barlage. Alex Salmond has resigned from the SNP following allegations of sexual harassment, which he has strenuously denied. Nicola Sturgeon has also issued a full statement regarding the case, saying, "While the decision to resign has been Alex's alone, I understand why he has chosen to separate the current questions he is facing from day-to-day business of the SNP and the ongoing campaign for independence. In the meantime, I agree with Alex that the cause of independence, to which both he and I have dedicated our entire lives, is bigger than any one individual, and the work we must do to achieve independence is important more now than ever." We can have a clip of the former First Minister Alex Salmond's resignation now. It's bigger than any one individual, and the work we must do to achieve independence is important more now than ever. We can have a clip of the former First Minister Alex Salmond.
Service. Apart from a political spat back in the 1980s, that has been a period of continuous membership. I truly love the SNP and the wider independence movement in Scotland. They have been the defining commitment of my life. But today I've written to the National Secretary I refute these two complaints of harassment, and I absolutely reject any suggestion of criminality. I believe that all such issues must be treated seriously, confidentially, and through a fair process. In this case, confidentiality has been broken, greatly to my detriment, but also in a way which puts now at serious risk the anonymity of both complainants. It urgently needs to be established who breached that duty of confidence and why. It seems obvious that Nicola feels under pressure from other political parties to suspend me from SNP membership, given recent party precedents. For my part, I've always thought it a very poor idea to suspend any party member on the basis of complaints and allegations. Innocent until proven guilty is central to our concept of justice. However, I didn't come into politics to facilitate opposition attacks on the SNP, and with Parliament returning next week, I've tendered my resignation to remove this line of opposition attack. Most of all, I am conscious that if the party felt forced into suspending me, it would cause substantial internal division. In my letter to the National Secretary, I state that it is my absolute intention to reapply for SNP membership just as soon as I've had the opportunity to clear my name. I hope that is by the end of this year. In the meantime, I would urge no one else to relinquish their SNP membership. My entire focus for the next few weeks is preparing for judicial review against the Permanent Secretary to the Scottish Government, the initial stages of which began yesterday. My intention is to secure fairness, because that is necessary to clear my name. I'm enormously grateful for the messages of support and encouragement I've received, including from people of other political persuasions. I can assure them all that I will keep on going. The costs of a judicial review in the highest court in the land are huge. Many have asked how they can help directly. Therefore, I've established a crowdfunder to assist with costs. All sums received will contribute exclusively to progressing the judicial review, and any money left over will be used to support good causes in Scotland and beyond. Finally, I will continue to serve the independence movement in whatever role and whatever capacity I can. It is a rare thing to be devoted to a cause more important than any individual. It is a precious thing to cherish it. And my intention now, as it has always been, is to protect, and sustain that cause.
A discussion paper to protect Scottish interests and values in future trade deals has been published today. The paper argues that the current arrangements in the UK for developing and agreeing trade deals are in need of an urgent overhaul. It makes a case for a guaranteed role for the Scottish Government and Scottish Parliament in all stages of such deals in the future. It also set out arrangements in other countries for involving devolved administrations in trade agreements, such as Canada, where the benefits of involving the provinces in the recent EU-Canada trade deal were widely recognised. Constitutional Relations Secretary Michael Russell said, "We must do everything we can to protect Scotland's interests in future trade deals and all possible Brexit outcomes. This would bring clear benefits for Scottish producers, exporters and consumers, not least protecting Scotland's NHS from being opened up to private competition." The Scottish Government is currently updating its export promotion strategy. Panasonic is planning to move its European headquarters from Britain to the Netherlands over concerns about potential tax issues related to Brexit. Lauren Tadabe, the European CEO of the Japanese company, said that the decision was made following fears that Japan could treat Britain as a tax haven after Brexit if London decides to lower its corporate tax rate in a bid to attract businesses. If Japan made the designation, Panasonic could face back taxes levied by Tokyo. The headquarters are due to move from outside London to Amsterdam in October. There are currently 879 Japanese companies employing 142,000 staff in Britain, including car makers Honda and Nissan. Prime Minister Theresa May has tried to reassure Japanese firms, visiting them in Tokyo last year and also hosting top executives in London this year. However, Japan has voiced concerns about business relations post-Brexit, with Japan's ambassador to London, Koji Saruka, warning that no company could function if profits dry up in Britain. Nissan is already preparing to axe hundreds of jobs in Sutherland, which produces 500,000 vehicles per year, as a result of a British sales slump. Germany's Finance Minister Olaf Scholz has warned against following a Europe First policy and said it was unclear whether the European Union would reach a Brexit agreement with Britain. European policies should promote the region's business and industry, he said. His comments came as the global company is confronted with uncertainties like trade and Britain's quickly approaching exit from the EU. The Finance Minister added that he would do everything to ensure a Brexit agreement with Britain, but that was difficult to say if one would be reached. He said that Germany needs a strong financial sector to support the country's export industry. Meanwhile, the president of Germany's financial watchdog, BaFin, Felix Hoffeld, said that if Britain leaves the EU at the end of March without an exit agreement, that would clarify numerous outstanding legal questions. BaFin could bring in temporary measures. He also said that Germany was processing more than 25 banking licences in the wake of Britain's decision to leave the European Union. Salaried doctors and dentists working across Scotland who earn below £80,000 are due to receive a 3% pay increase. This gain will be capped at £1,600 in line with the Agenda for Change pay deal. Independent contractor GPs will also receive a 3% increase in earnings compared to 2% for GPs in England. This is in addition to wider investment support of the new General Medical Services contract of more than £100 million. The pay rise also means that junior doctors will be paid at least £444 more than their English counterparts. Independent contractor dentists, or GDPs, are also due to receive 2% of net expenses. Health Secretary Jeane Freeman said this pay increase will be backdated to the 1st of April, something that is not happening in England. It follows our minimum 9% rise for the NHS agenda for change employees over the next 3 years, which will give those 147,000 employees the best pay conditions in the UK. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has confirmed £4.8 million of funding for Spirit Aerosystems' new open access aerospace innovation centre at its manufacturing site in Prestwick. Innovation within the new centre will focus on the development of the next generation of aircraft and will also help develop the technology for composite materials and automated assembly used in the industry. The investment will create 40 high-value jobs. Over the next decade, the facility will further enable growth for industry-leading aerospace technologies and innovations, and will have the potential to create further manufacturing jobs. The First Minister confirmed the funding as she visited the company's manufacturing site. She said, "Research and development drives innovation and economic growth, so it's great to be back here to see that additional support helping not just Spirit, but also companies across Scotland develop new products." Today's announcement underlines the importance of Prestwick as an aviation hub and is a key piece of Scotland's industrial infrastructure, supporting jobs, investment and opportunity. Meanwhile, Deputy First Minister John Swinney announced he has committed £2.6 million of funding to Scotland's science centres for the coming year. The hubs welcomed over 700,000 visitors in 2017, and figures show that footfall to the centres in Aberdeen, Dundee, Edinburgh and Glasgow has continued to grow year on year. 190,000 visitors came from educational facilities, including 40,000 supported visits, involving schools in more deprived and rural areas. Speaking ahead of a visit to Dundee Science Centre to see the new Medical Marvels exhibition and Science Learning Suite, the Deputy First Minister said the science centres have an important role to play in delivering our STEM education and training strategy. I am pleased that we will continue to work together to achieve our shared goal of supporting people's engagement with science, technology, engineering and maths throughout their lives. The proposed merge between SSE Retail and npower does not raise competition concerns, the Competition and Markets Authority or CMA has found. An inquiry group of independent CMA panel members has investigated how the merger would affect householders, following initial concerns about the potential impact on standard variable tariffs, the most common and expensive energy tariff. As part of its assessment, the panel examined evidence from the 6 large energy suppliers, smaller suppliers and customer groups and regulators. This included hearings with consumer groups and suppliers in Scotland, where SSE had a large share of consumers. None of these raised substantial concerns about the effects of the merger on householders. Anne Lambert, chair of the inquiry group, said, "We carefully scrutinise this deal, in particular how it would impact people who pay the more expensive standard variable prices. Our analysis shows that the merger will not impact how SSE and npower set their SVT process, because they are not close rivals for these customers." Domestic abuser Brian McTaggart has been sentenced to 8 years in jail and an order for lifelong restriction following his appearance at Glasgow High Court today. The 54-year-old was sentenced in relation to a catalogue of offences against numerous partners and children over a period of 36 years. Detective Inspector Muriel Fuller of the Domestic Abuse Task Force said this was a complex and protracted case which involved a large team of specialist officers carrying out inquiries across Scotland and the north of England. The full extent and appalling nature of McTaggart's offending became apparent during the course of the investigation. A man who raped a woman 1,000 times and tortured another by attacking her with his 3-metre-long pet boa snake has been jailed for 14 years. John Dixon, 38, carried out a 17-year reign of abuse against 4 women and was found guilty of 5 charges including rape and domestic abuse at the High Court in Glasgow today. He will continue to be monitored for 4 years following his release. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has announced her intention to appoint Richard Lochhead as Minister for Further Education, Higher Education and Science. Mr Lochhead will be able to undertake some ministerial duties immediately and will be put forward for approval by Parliament next week, subject to parliamentary timetabling and Her Majesty the Queen in September. The First Minister said Richard brings significant experience to the role, having previously served in government for 9 years, and I'm pleased he has agreed to become the new Minister for Further Education, Higher Education and Science. As a Minister, he will work to deliver our ambitious agenda to widen access to education, support our world-leading universities and promote opportunities for young people to realise their full potential, including through science, technology, engineering and maths or STEM subjects. Now we're going to speak to Ruth Watson from Keep Scotland the Brand about the work regarding community abattoirs. Hello, hi Ruth, thank you very much for joining us today, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about what the current situation is at the moment?
Yes, but first I've just realised I've left the microphone on, the speaker on, so I shall turn that down so I don't end up doing something horrible.
No problem. Thank you very much.
It's a rookie mistake. I should know better.
That's all right.
I hope that's better now.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I released a press release last night, having been approached by a woman called Jane Cooper, who rears the rare breed, the Borere sheep in Orkney. It's the last known remnants of the traditional Assynt flocks, and is one of the remnants. There are 4 or 5 breeds which are the remnants of the really ancient short-tailed breeds which used to be all over Scotland. She's doing a tremendous job of rescuing this breed from oblivion, and is working, as many farmers are in Orkney and the Western Isles, with traditional native breeds. The North Ronaldsay sheep, it's an iconic breed, one of the most unique breeds of sheep in the world, because it lives predominantly on seaweed, spending most of its life on the rocks, on the outskirts, outside a wall which encircles the island of North Ronaldsay, where there's not much land in North Ronaldsay. It's a very wee island, so the sheep traditionally, there wasn't room to grow food and have sheep on it, so they lived outside this wall on the rocks, and they have developed an extremely unique physical trait, a characteristic where they can eat this high salt diet, but it doesn't affect them badly, and they get enough nourishment from the seaweed, which I am told gives the meat a distinctive flavour. Currently they have a PGI or PDO potentially going through for protected status through the European processes. So Jane contacted me because the Orkney Abattoir closed earlier this year, and you lose your PDO, your protected designation of origin. Is an even more specialised protected name than the PGI, which many people are familiar with, Scotch beef, Scotch lamb, and the like. So the rules of terroir mean that the product has to come from the land, and it has to be slaughtered within the land that it is raised on. It gives consumer confidence. It means that you know what you're buying is the real deal if it's raised and slaughtered in that area. The Orkney Abattoir was a splendid facility. As a vegetarian, I was in it doing. I used to be a journalist in Orkney, and I went in to do an interview there, and I was very impressed by the humane way in which these animals met their end. If you're going to have a slaughterhouse and you're going to have a meat industry, you want to have slaughterhouses of the kind that they had in Orkney. It was a really good facility. So it was closed earlier this year, and this is happening all over Scotland. According to Quality Meat Scotland, in 2008, there were 38 abattoirs around Scotland, and if you look at the map of them, they were dotted really well around Scotland, the islands, the rural areas, which means that animals weren't having to travel big distances. Now, there are lots of rules and regulations, meaning that animals which do travel are well looked after, and their welfare is a priority. But if you're a farmer in rural Angus, and you've only got your smallholder, and you've only got 2 or 3 animals that you want to get taken to the mart because you want a sheep to get you through the year for your freezer, and you want to make local artisan meats to sell to a global market, a specialist market, or even a local market where folk are wanting to buy your local sausages, for example. It's very, very hard to find an abattoir which will take a small number of animals. So several people have been speaking to me about this. I've been speaking to the crofters, I've been speaking to the smallholders, I've spoken to NFU Scotland and Quality Meat Scotland, And everybody recognises that there is an issue that if you don't have the infrastructure in place, you can't sustain a rural economy. How does it work? How can the people of Skye, who've been campaigning for their abattoir to come back or to get a facility, how can you sustain thriving communities where people are having their livelihood either taken from them because they can't get their animals to market, or the viability is reduced. I was very impressed by the new food and tourism strategy, which was announced earlier this week. I think that's very, very good news. So some of these farming community representatives and I put our heads together and thought that now was a good time to try and encourage focus on ensuring that rural communities have infrastructure which keep jobs in the area and actually keep thriving communities in areas where if a tourist comes to Scotland, they want to come in and be eating and dining and visiting a thriving living community, not a glorified retirement village.
Right. So how is Keep Scotland, the brand, involved in this? What are they doing to try and revive these communities?
Well, I mean, Keep Scotland, the brand, all we can do is try and raise awareness. Keep Scotland, the brand, is in the fortunate position of being a campaign which has a great deal of support through communities across Scotland. We all have to eat, and when we do, we have a farmer to thank for it. That's what unites every single one of us. It doesn't matter where we're coming from, whether we're vegetarian or we're meat eaters, or whatever our outlook on life. The one thing that unites us is if there aren't farmers working the fields, there isn't food on the plates. So we're very lucky in that there are a lot of people who are very aware about how important the food and drink sector is, and farming and fishing is to many of our communities. And so we're trying to raise awareness. We've been in touch with a number of organisations, with the Scottish Government, with Scotland Food and Drink, and I understand that there are discussions ongoing as to the viability of, for example, the Orkney Abattoir. But I think that this has to be something which is considered as an animal welfare issue, because if all the evidence shows that if you send animals to their death in their peer group, if they go that they are used to, if they've been used to hanging out with their buddies in a field, and they go 2 or 3 of them together and are taken to the abattoir together and are slaughtered together, that is a much less stressful experience for them. And I think that we owe it. We have a healthy livestock industry in Scotland, and given the fact that only 15% of our land produces arable, I can see that it makes sense to have a thriving livestock industry going on the hills and in the areas, outlying areas where crops won't grow.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
thank you very much then for joining us. We owe it
to those animals to ensure that their end-of-life experience is as positive as possible, and we owe it to our communities to ensure that the infrastructure is there, because surely it makes sense to keep jobs in rural areas. Surely it makes sense, rather than centralising everything to these mega abattoirs, we have micro abattoirs or travelling slaughterhouses, which mean local people have...
Sorry to interrupt you, Ruth, we're just running out of time a little bit here, but if you just hang on, we'll come back to you a bit later on, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to watch a short fishing clip featuring Ian Whiteman. Now we're joined by Lee White, Executive Secretary of the Scottish Fishermen's Federation, who'll be speaking to us about Scotland's fisheries. Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. And just to clarify, I'm the Executive Secretary of the Clyde Fishermen's Association, and I also work within the Communities Inshore Fisheries Alliance.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we've just watched that video clip there. What is your initial response to this?
In terms of the clip, the fishing clip?
Yeah, the fishing clip you just saw.
Yeah, that's one of our members, the Elian. He's out fishing for langoustine, and he is a sustainable kind of community-based fishery, smaller boat, and out day boat generally, and just out, living within the community, money coming back into the community.
Sure. Okay, so in regards to France and everything going on there, what are your thoughts about that and the current climate?
Of scallop fishing. We have less and less scallop fishers in the Clyde at the moment, which is a shame, but due to the MPA measurements that we've had over the last 2 to 3 years, actually, our fleets went down with the scallop boats, but our boats are far smaller. They do not fish round in the English Channel, so that debate is really more to do with the Peterhead fishermen, who are the nomadic fishermen, the larger fleet that go down to the English Channel. But of course we don't want to see any fisherman's life in danger. It's a worry, it's a real worry.
Right. Were there any fishermen from the Clyde there at all?
No fishermen from the Clyde. No, there wasn't. But it is an indication of something that we are and have been worried about for a long time in terms of relationships with their European partners. About 86% of our fish and our seafood goes to Europe. It goes to France, Italy and Spain. So we have always long been concerned about maintaining trade relationships.
Okay, and do you think these are likely to change in the build-up to Brexit?
Well, yes, for sure. I mean, I think we can see that tensions are rising. Possibly this is a different issue, this is an access issue, but certainly I think with Brexit approaching, people's attitudes and tensions are high. We have to wait and see what happens. There's still a lot of unknowns.
Sure, okay. And what effects is this going to have eventually on sea life in general? What do you think?
In terms of scallop fishing?
In terms of scallop fishing.
Or all kinds of mobile fishing, or...
In terms of scallop fishing in particular.
In terms of scallop fishing, I mean, are you talking about the priority marine feature legislation which is coming out? There's a consultation out at the moment which ends actually tomorrow regarding priority marine features, and just to let you understand, we have always been very supportive of marine protected areas and of maintaining the marine environment in a sustainable form. And we have fishermen who fish mobile fishermen, who are scallop fishermen, are nephrops fishermen, and we also have line and creel and dive fishermen. So we have a good spread of different types, and we find that works best. With the priority marine features, of course, we are supportive of protecting what's there. That's important for every fisherman, particularly our fishermen who fish where they live. It's very important for them to maintain the environment, and they're most often the custodians. They suggest a lot of closed areas themselves at times, so you'll find that's a story that's not often told. Regarding the priority marine features in particular, we've been trialling Anchor Lab, which is a technology which goes onto your winch sensor as a fishing boat and allows you to know exactly what depth the fishermen are fishing at. It's been used in Denmark very successfully to open up fisheries that were closed due to features. So we would, it also helps to increase the accountability of the fleet, because you know where a boat is at all times and it's very specific. So we would favour that type of approach. We have the technology now that can mean that if there's a priority feature there, make sure that the boats have Anchor Lab. Let's look to make sure that they're not fishing at a depth that is causing a problem for a priority marine feature, but it also allows communities in fishing, sustainable fishing, to keep going. So.
Okay. And when would that technology be brought in roughly, do you think?
That technology exists. We've trialled it already and it's been used very successfully in Denmark. So we would say that we understand that at times it's appropriate to close areas for various reasons for stock conservation. Fishermen often suggest that themselves, but we'd say that sometimes it's not always appropriate to have a blanket ban on areas. If there's features that have to be protected, let's use the technology and make sure that we're protecting them.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining us into the studio today. We do appreciate your time.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much to our guests, Ruth Watson and Elaine White, and thank you to you for watching. Good evening.